It begins so subtly that you don't even realize it. A charming glance, a compliment that feels electric, a moment where you feel truly seen, maybe for the first time in years. But what if I told you this is not love, not destiny, not connection? It's a trap, a psychological snare carefully laid by someone who doesn't want to know you, but to possess you, to feed on your energy, your attention, your soul. This is not a relationship, it's a ritual. And Carl Jung, one of the deepest minds in psychology, warned us about this very thing. He called it the encounter with the shadow. And if you ignore the red flags, if you don't know how to recognize the signs, you won't just walk away hurt. You'll walk away shattered.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
At first, everything seems perfect. That's how it works. The narcissist mirrors your desires, your language, your dreams. They become a reflection of your ideal partner, your ideal friend, your ideal mentor. They don't just get you, they become you. And that's where the danger starts. Because what looks like love is actually fusion. What feels like intimacy is actually erasure. Slowly, without realizing it, you stop hearing your own voice. You stop trusting your own gut. You begin to orbit around them, adjusting your light to match their shadow. And by the time you see the truth, you're already hooked. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone. He said that the narcissist is not just a person with a big ego. No, at the root of narcissism is a profound split in the psyche. A rejection of the true self and a replacement with a mask, what Jung called the persona. This persona is seductive, it's powerful, but it's hollow. And to maintain its illusion, the narcissist needs one thing above all else: someone else's energy. That's where you come in. You become fuel, not a partner, not an equal. Fuel. And they will keep drawing from you until there's nothing left. But how do you spot it? How do you know when you're in the presence of this psychological vampire? The red flags are always there. The first is intensity. But narcissists don't build relationships, they hijack them. They move fast. They love bomb. They overwhelm. You think you found something extraordinary, but what you've really found is an actor reading your script. They say everything right. They make you feel chosen. But it's not real. It's bait. And the moment you take it, the game begins. Another red flag is control disguised as care. They ask where you're going, who you're with, what you're thinking. At first, it feels sweet, like someone finally cares. But over time, you realize you're being monitored, not cherished. Your autonomy starts to shrink. Your world gets smaller. And you start to feel guilty for wanting space, for needing boundaries. But Jung would say, pay attention. Because the moment your inner voice grows quiet, the shadow is at work. Here's the most dangerous part. The narcissist doesn't want you to leave. They want you to stay doubting yourself. They thrive on confusion. They gaslight. They rewrite history. They make you question your memory, your instincts, even your sanity. And Carl Jung warned us, the psyche is fragile. If you don't confront the shadow consciously, it will take over. This is what happens in narcissistic abuse. Your shadow, your fear, your guilt, your longing gets weaponized against you, and you begin to lose yourself. But the question is, why do we fall for it? Why do smart, strong, intuitive people get trapped in these relationships? Jung's answer is chilling, because the narcissist reflects our unconscious. They embody the parts of ourselves we haven't claimed. Maybe it's our need for validation. Maybe it's our unhealed wounds. Maybe it's our own hidden narcissism. But whatever it is, the narcissist senses it, mirrors it, and uses it. And unless we do the inner work, unless we integrate our own shadow, we will keep attracting people who exploit it. So ask yourself, what part of you needed that love so badly you ignored the warning signs? What pain in you made their attention feel like salvation? These questions are not meant to blame you. They're meant to free you. Because once you understand your own shadow, the spell breaks. The narcissist can no longer hook you. Their power dies the moment you reclaim your own. But you have to go within. You have to stop looking at their behavior and start looking at your own reflection. Jung believed that what we don't make conscious will rule our lives. And nowhere is this truer than in toxic relationships. If you don't know your worth, someone else will define it. If you don't know your boundaries, someone else will invade them. If you don't know your light, someone will sell you darkness dressed as love. And that's the real danger. Not just that a narcissist will hurt you, but that they will convince you you deserved it. But let me tell you something powerful. You are not broken. You were targeted. You were chosen because you have light. Narcissists don't feed on the weak. They feed on the radiant, on the empathic, on the generous. And if you've been through it, if you've survived it, that means you are stronger than you know. But survival is not the goal. Awakening is. You must become conscious. You must become sovereign. You must become the one who sees. And when you do, everything changes. The narcissist loses their grip. The red flags become neon signs. What once felt magnetic now feels repulsive. And you stop asking, why did they do this to me? And start asking, why did I allow it? That's where the power is. That's where your healing begins. Not in blaming, not in revenge, but in revelation. And Jung would say, this is the moment when the shadow becomes your teacher. But the journey doesn't end there, because once you see the pattern, you must break it. You must rewire the part of your psyche that thought abuse was love, that thought chaos was passion, that thought control was safety. This is not easy. It takes time. It takes therapy. It takes solitude. It takes brutal honesty. But it also births something sacred, a self that can no longer be manipulated, a self that no longer needs the narcissist to feel whole. And here's the final truth. The narcissist is not your enemy. They are your mirror, a distorted, painful mirror, but a mirror nonetheless. They show you where you've abandoned yourself, where you've settled, where you've silenced your intuition. And once you see that, once you take the lesson, you don't need to hate them. You don't need to fight them. You simply walk away with your power intact, your soul awakened, and your shadow integrated. Carl Jung didn't just give us psychology. He gave us a map of the soul, a way to understand evil not as something out there, but as something we must confront within. And if you've danced with a narcissist and survived, you've walked through the underworld. You've touched the archetype of the trickster, the seducer, the devourer. And now you are being called to rise not as a victim, not as a warrior, but as a whole human being. So I ask you this, what part of yourself are you still afraid to face? Because until you face it, someone else will use it against you. That's the warning. That's the wisdom. That's the way out. Now that we've unlocked the first layer of this dark psychological pattern, we need to go deeper, because the narcissist doesn't just wound you once. They restructure your inner world. They condition you to doubt yourself, to betray your instincts, to rely on them for your reality. And that's the real tragedy. Not the initial betrayal, not even the manipulation, but the fact that you begin to internalize their voice as your own. Carl Jung called this the possession of the psyche by unconscious forces. And when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, you become possessed not by them, but by who you become for them. It's subtle at first. You begin to second-guess yourself. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. You shrink your light so they don't feel threatened. You walk on eggshells while telling yourself they didn't mean it. But that voice inside you, the one that says something is wrong, it doesn't go away. It just gets quieter. Jung would say that's the ego being overwhelmed by the shadow. The parts of you that want harmony, love, connection, they override your survival instincts. And this is not weakness. This is trauma. The narcissist isn't just wounding you. They're hacking your nervous system, rewiring your sense of what is normal. So how do we reclaim ourselves? First, we have to understand what Jung called projection. Narcissists are masters of projection. They take their inner shame, their insecurity, their darkness, and they throw it onto you. Suddenly, you are the selfish one. You are the unstable one. You are the toxic one. And because they say it with such conviction, because they seem so sure, you begin to question your reality. That's the trap. You're not just being gaslit, you're being inverted. Your truth is being turned against you. And here's the hardest part. You can't argue your way out. You can't explain your truth to someone who is committed to not seeing it. Narcissists don't want dialogue. They want dominance. They don't want intimacy. They want control. And the more you try to get them to understand, the more power you give them. Jung warned us, whatever you resist persists. The more you engage with their illusion, the more entangled you become. The only real power you have is to withdraw your energy, to step out of the projection, to refuse to play the role they've written for you. But that takes inner work, deep, relentless, soul-level work, because part of you wants to be seen. Part of you still hopes they'll change. Part of you needs closure. But that's the trap. Narcissists don't give closure. They give confusion. They keep you spinning, searching, suffering, because as long as you're focused on them, you're not focused on yourself. And Jung would say, that's exactly the lesson. The narcissist is a threshold guardian. They block your path to the self until you reclaim your inner authority. So let's talk about healing. Not surface-level healing. Not move-on healing, but real, transformative, Jungian integration. The first step is radical honesty. You have to stop minimizing what happened. Stop calling it just a rough patch or a complicated relationship. You were psychologically manipulated. You were emotionally exploited. and pretending otherwise only delays your healing. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This is about making the unconscious conscious. That means looking at your patterns. What drew you in? What kept you there? What did you ignore? What did you sacrifice? These aren't questions of blame. They're questions of power. Because once you understand your pattern, you can break it. You can rebuild your inner compass. You can stop attracting people who mirror your wounds and start attracting people who mirror your growth. But to do that, you must meet your shadow. The parts of you that were desperate for love. The parts that believed you had to earn safety. The parts that confused being needed with being valued. Jung taught that the shadow is not the enemy, it's the doorway. The narcissist exposed your shadow. Now it's your job to integrate it, to bring it into the light, to say, "Yes, I was afraid. Yes, I abandoned myself, but I see it now, and I choose differently." That's how you reclaim your power. Not by changing them, not by proving anything, but by choosing yourself again and again and again. And that choice is hard because it will feel unfamiliar. It will feel selfish. It will feel wrong. But that's because your nervous system was trained to prioritize their needs over yours. Healing means retraining it. It means learning that peace isn't boring, it's healthy. That boundaries aren't rejection, they're protection. That love isn't chaos, it's calm. And here's where it gets mystical. Jung believed that true healing is alchemical. That when you confront the shadow and survive, you don't just recover, you transform. You become something new, stronger, wiser, more whole. This isn't just about surviving narcissistic abuse. It's about evolving through it, about becoming the version of yourself that no longer needs to learn this lesson again. So how do you get there? You start small. You set boundaries not to punish others, but to protect your energy. You speak your truth not for validation, but for clarity. You listen to your body, not your conditioning. You rest, you grieve, you rage. You forgive not because they deserve it, but because you do. You reclaim your story. You stop seeing yourself as broken. You start seeing yourself as reborn. Because here's the truth, the narcissist didn't destroy you. They revealed you. They cracked open the false self you were living in. They exposed the parts of you that needed healing. And now you have a choice. Will you keep repeating the pattern? Or will you become conscious? Will you keep seeking validation? Or will you validate yourself? Will you keep fearing your shadow? Or will you integrate it and rise? Carl Jung didn't offer easy answers. He didn't believe in shortcuts. But he believed in the soul. He believed in the power of the individual to awaken, to transform, to become whole. And that's what this journey is about. Not just escaping a narcissist, but becoming someone they can no longer touch. Someone so rooted in self-awareness, in self-love, in self-trust, that manipulation has no place to land. So I ask you, what would your life look like if you fully trusted yourself again? If you stopped looking for signs and started becoming the signal? If you stopped doubting and started deciding? That's the path. That's the healing. That's the power. Now we come to the final stage, not of the pain, but of the transformation. Because if you've made it this far, you've already done what most people never do. You've stopped pretending. You've stopped minimizing. You've faced the truth. And the truth is, you were manipulated by someone who wore a mask, and they almost convinced you that you were the problem. Carl Jung warned us that the most dangerous people are those who refuse to confront their own shadow because they will force everyone around them to carry it. That is the narcissist. They are not whole, and they don't want to be. They want to feed. And if you don't see it for what it is, they will slowly dismantle you from the inside out. But here's the deeper truth that most people miss. The narcissist doesn't just deceive you, they activate you. They force you to see the unconscious parts of yourself that were asleep. The people pleaser, the self-sacrificer, the perfectionist, the silent sufferer. These archetypes exist in all of us. And when you attract a narcissist, it's not because you're weak. It's because you are unconscious to a part of yourself that needs to wake up. Jung would say this moment, this painful, soul-crushing moment, is your initiation. The narcissist is only the beginning. What comes next is the real work. The work of building an identity that is not based on how much you give, how much you endure, or how little you ask for. It's the work of learning to say no without guilt, to walk away without apology, to love yourself so deeply that anyone who tries to manipulate you feels like a foreign virus trying to enter your immune system. This is not about revenge. It's not about getting even. It's about becoming immune. But immunity doesn't come from hate. It doesn't come from bitterness. It comes from integration. From taking everything you learned, everything you lost, everything you endured and turning it into structure, into values, into armor. Jung called this individuation the process of becoming whole. Not perfect, not invulnerable. Whole, and to become whole, you must stop splitting yourself into fragments. You must stop denying the parts of you that were complicit in your own suffering. That doesn't mean you blame yourself. It means you empower yourself. You look at the part of you that stayed too long and ask, what did you believe? You look at the part of you that kept giving and ask, what were you trying to earn? You look at the part of you that ignored the red flags and ask, what were you afraid of losing? These are not easy questions, but they are sacred because the answers don't just reveal the past. They release your future. And once you've done that, once you've faced yourself, you begin to see the narcissist with new eyes. Not as a monster, not as a god, but as a wounded, disintegrated soul who tried to hijack your light because they couldn't access their own. And from that perspective, you don't need to hate them. You don't need to fix them. You don't even need to understand them. You just walk away because you finally understand you. That is the real liberation. Not just leaving the narcissist, but no longer needing what they pretended to offer. The validation, the attention, the illusion of being special. You realize you were always whole. You were just convinced you weren't. And Jung would say, this realization is the birth of the true self, the self that knows, the self that sees, the self that chooses. But don't expect the world to applaud your awakening. In fact, expect resistance. Because the moment you stop playing the role, the moment you stop performing, pleasing, conforming, those who benefited from your silence will react. They may accuse you of being cold, selfish, arrogant. Let them. That's just the echo of the mask trying to reassert itself. You don't owe anyone your peace. You don't owe anyone your energy. Especially not those who demanded it without offering anything in return. This is where you set your new standard. You don't just heal, you evolve. You don't just survive, you transcend. You become selective with your time, with your heart, with your soul. Not because you're guarded, but because you're aware. You've seen what happens when you give access to someone who hasn't earned it. You've seen what happens when you ignore red flags because you're too afraid to walk alone. And now you're not afraid anymore. You'd rather be alone in truth than surrounded by lies. And here's where the story changes, because now you become the mirror. You become the one who reflects back truth, integrity, wholeness. And narcissists can't survive in that light. They either run or they reveal themselves. Either way, you're safe, because you're no longer open to illusions. You've seen too much. You've lost too much. And now you protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. Carl Jung didn't promise a painless journey. He said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. But he also said, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. And that's what you've done. You've looked inside. You've awakened. You've walked through the fire, and now you carry the flame. So I ask you now, what will you do with this fire? Will you use it to burn bridges or to light new paths? Will you use it to destroy or to create? Will you let this experience define you or refine you? Because the choice is yours. It always has been. You are not a victim of a narcissist. You are a survivor of your own unconsciousness. And now you are conscious. Awake, whole. That is the ultimate revenge. That is the deepest healing. That is the power no narcissist can ever take from you. So remember this, when you ignore the red flags, a narcissist will destroy you, but when you learn from them, they become the very force that rebirths you. Let the pain teach you. Let the shadow guide you. And never forget, your light is not for everyone. It's for you. It always has been.